The morning my stepson told me I wasn't family. I was making pancakes. That detail still sticks with me, the way the batter sizzled when it hit the pan. The smell of butter browning at the edges. The ordinary Saturday morning quiet of a house that had been mine for over a decade. I had the radio on low. Some old country station neither of us ever admitted to liking. And I was thinking about nothing in particular. Proud. Maybe. A little sentimental. Graduation day had that effect on me. His name is Tyler. He was 18 that June. And he'd worked hard for that diploma, harder than most people gave him credit for. I'd watched him struggle through sophomore year. Sit at the kitchen table until midnight, grinding through algebra he hated. Rewrite a history paper 3 times before he was satisfied. I'd driven him to tutoring on Tuesday evenings for 2 full semesters. I'd been there for the bad grades and the good ones. I thought I'd earned the right to be there for this one too. I was wrong about that. I need to say something. He was standing in the doorway in his practice jersey. Arms folded. Jaw set in that particular way. That told me whatever came next had been rehearsed. About today. I turned the burner down. Go ahead. I don't want you at the ceremony. He said it flat. No decoration. The way you might tell someone, the store is out of what they came for. My dad's going to be there. My real dad. And I don't want it to be weird. I waited. Gave him room to add something, a qualification. Oh, but. Anything. There was nothing. Does your mom know you're telling me this? She knows how I feel. Which wasn't an answer. But it was the only one I got. I flipped the pancake. I don't know why, muscle memory. Maybe. Or the need to do something with my hands that wasn't pointing or gripping or falling open at my sides. The pancake came out fine. Perfect. Even. Golden and even and completely irrelevant to anything that mattered. Okay. I said. He nodded once. Like we'd settled a scheduling conflict. And walked back down the hall to his room. My wife, Diane, appeared in the doorway about 4 minutes later. She was already dressed, heels on, earrings in, the charcoal blazer she'd bought specifically for today. She looked beautiful. She also looked like someone who had been listening from the hallway and had decided, at some point in those 4 minutes, that she wasn't going to say anything about what she'd heard. Pancakes, she offered. Sure, I said. We ate at the counter. She talked about parking and whether her mother's knee would hold up through the standing ovation portions. I answered when she asked me something directly. We did not discuss Tyler. We did not discuss what I'd just been told. The pancakes were good. The orange juice was cold. Outside. The June morning was clear and bright and completely indifferent. When they left Tyler in his cap and gown, Diane in her heels, her mother moving carefully with her cane, I stood in the kitchen doorway and watched the car pull out of the driveway. I raised one hand. Diane waved back automatically. Tyler did not look up. The house was very quiet after that. I want to be careful here. Because it's easy, maybe too easy, to make this story about a villain and a victim. Tyler wasn't a villain. He was a kid who'd grown up in 2 households. With a biological father who blew in and out of his life in unpredictable cycles, full of big promises and canceled plans. Marcus, that was, his dad, was charming and unreliable in equal measure. And Tyler had spent most of his childhood trying to reconcile those 2 facts about the man he loved without condition. I came into the picture when Tyler was 7. Diane and I met at a work conference in Denver. Fell into something real and fast and a little unexpected for both of us. And got married 14 months later. I moved into their house, her house, originally, which we later sold to buy somewhere that felt like ours, and I tried. I want to be clear about that, because in the years since, I've sometimes been tempted to rewrite the early parts, to make them easier than they were. It wasn't easy. Tyler was a complicated kid. guarded in the way that children of unreliable parents often are. He didn't trust readily. He tested limits constantly, not out of malice, but out of a genuine need to see whether the new arrangement would hold. I understood that. Intellectually, it didn't always make it less exhausting, but there were good years. Real ones. When he was 9, he went through a phase of being obsessed with model rockets. And I spent 3 weekends building a mid-power kit with him in the garage, getting the fins straight, figuring out the recovery system together. He called me Dad exactly once during that period we were in the car. He was talking fast about something at school, and it just came out. And then he caught himself and went quiet for a second before plowing on like it hadn't happened. I didn't say anything. I just kept driving. I held on to that. When he was 12, Marcus went through a difficult stretch, lost his job, moved in with a girlfriend Tyler didn't like, missed 3 visits in a row without explanation. Tyler came home from a weekend at Marcus's place that had turned into a 4-hour visit and went straight to his room. That night, around 10 o'clock, he knocked on my office door. "Can I just sit here for a while?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. "Of course." He sat in the chair by the window and didn't say anything for almost 40 minutes. I kept working. He fell asleep around 11, and I put a blanket over him and left the light on because he'd always hated complete darkness. In the morning, he ate cereal at the table and said thanks to nobody in particular. And I said sure in the same direction. And we understood each other. I held on to that too. The problem, and I've spent a long time sitting with this problem, is that Marcus came back. He always came back. When Tyler was 15, Marcus had a good year, steady work, a stable apartment, a new energy that Tyler desperately wanted to believe in. They started spending more time together, which was fine, good. Even for Tyler. Genuinely. I told myself that, and I meant it. But something shifted in those years. Tyler's relationship with his father stabilized into something that felt permanent and primary. And his relationship with me, which had always been quieter, more functional, less dramatic, started to read. In comparison, as lesser, as not real, as stepfather, which is a word that carries a prefix for a reason. I don't think Tyler made a conscious decision to demote me. I think it happened the way most erosions happen, gradually. Then suddenly, and by the time you notice, the landscape has already changed. By the time he was 17, he was calling me Nathan exclusively. By 18, the distance had formalized into something that looked, from the outside, like the ordinary distance between a teenager and an adult, but felt, from the inside, like something more deliberate. And then graduation morning came. And it was very deliberate. I stayed home the whole day. I thought about leaving, going to see my brother in Westfield, or driving somewhere without a destination, the way I used to when I needed to think. But I didn't want to run. So I stayed. I cleaned the gutters. I mowed the back lawn, which didn't need it. I ate a sandwich standing at the kitchen counter and looked at the refrigerator, where there was a photo held up by a magnet Tyler, maybe 10 years old, holding a rocket we'd built, squinting into the sun, grinning with one tooth missing in the front. I'd taken that photo. I remembered the exact weight of the camera in my hands. By afternoon, I'd made a decision. I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad, and I wrote 2 things. The first was a letter. The second was a list. The letter took me 3 drafts and about 2 hours. I wanted it to be honest without being cruel. I wanted it to say what I actually felt, not the performed version, the cleaned up version, but without making Tyler responsible for carrying more weight than he should at 18. I wrote about the rocket. I wrote about the night he slept in my office chair. I wrote about every school pickup, every Sunday breakfast, every ordinary Wednesday I had chosen to show up for. Not because I had to, but because I'd decided to. I wrote that I loved him. I wrote that I understood he didn't feel the same way, and that I wasn't going to pretend the last 11 years were nothing just because he'd decided they were. I wrote that I wasn't leaving, but things were going to be different, and he deserved to know that from me directly. The list was simpler. It was everything I'd been financially covering in Tyler's life that his biological father, or, for that matter, anyone had never acknowledged or replaced. The tutoring, $4, 800 over 2 semesters. The SAT prep course, $1. eBay. The car insurance on the used sedan I'd put in my name when Tyler got his license, $214 a month for 16 months. The textbooks. The class fees. The spring break trip with his friend group that I'd paid for half of because Marcus had promised and then couldn't. The orthodontist bill from when Tyler was 13, which had been a $6. 200 item that I'd handled without discussion because it needed handling. I wasn't asking for repayment. I wasn't filing anything. I put the number at the bottom, $23. Sube. Give or take, not as a demand, but as documentation. As a record of what not family had chosen to do anyway. I folded both pages into an envelope and left it in the center of the kitchen table, under Tyler's graduation photo that Diane had set out as a decoration. Then I went to bed. I was already awake when they got home. Just after 11. I heard the front door. The heels on the hardwood. Tyler's voice saying something I couldn't make out. Diane laughing at something. Happy sounds. Good day sounds. I didn't go out. I heard them move through the house. Heard the refrigerator open. Heard Diane. Noticed the envelope. A small pause in the sound pattern. What's this that I felt more than heard through the wall. Then quiet for a long time. Then, eventually, the low register of a conversation I wasn't meant to hear. Tyler knocked on the bedroom door at 12:40. Come in, I said. He was still in his dress shirt. Tie loosened. The kind of disheveled that meant the evening had gone late and celebratory. He looked young. He looked, for the first time in a while, like the 10-year-old with the rocket and the missing tooth. He stood in the doorway for a moment without speaking. I didn't know. He finally said, about most of that list. I know you didn't. I thought he stopped. Tried again. I thought my dad handled things. Sometimes. I said, not always. He leaned against the doorframe. He was trying to stay composed, and mostly managing it. But his jaw was doing the thing it does when he's holding something back. The letter, he said. You said things were going to be different. Yes. What does that mean? I sat up. It means I'm not going to keep acting like today didn't happen. I love you. I'm not going anywhere. But I'm done pretending that what I did for you for 11 years was nothing. And I'm done letting you treat it like it was nothing. You're 18 now. You can decide what kind of relationship we have. But I want you to decide it with the full picture. He was quiet for a while. Then I shouldn't have said what I said this morning. No. I agreed. You shouldn't have. I'm sorry. I looked at him. He meant it. I could tell he meant it the way I could always tell. Even when he was 7 and apologizing for something he'd broken and trying not to cry about it. I know. I said. He nodded. He looked like he wanted to say something else. And couldn't find it. And decided the nodding would have to do. Get some sleep. I said. We can talk tomorrow. He went. Diane came in about 20 minutes later. She sat on the edge of the bed and didn't say anything for a while. Which was its own kind of statement. I should have said something this morning. She finally said, yes. I said, you should have. I didn't want to make it a bigger deal than it was. It was a big deal. Diane. She looked at her hands. She wasn't crying. But she was close. I know that now. I didn't say anything for a moment. Then I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this to punish him. Or you. I'm doing this because I've spent 11 years giving everything I had to this family. And this morning I got reminded that I have to justify my place in it. And I'm not willing to keep operating like that. She looked up. Nathan, I'm not finished. I kept my voice even. I love you. I want us to work. But you cannot keep leaving me to stand alone every time Tyler decides I don't count. I need you to be my partner, not a bystander. She was quiet for a long moment. You're right, she said. I know you're right. Okay, I said. She reached over and took my hand. We sat like that for a while, not talking, but the room dark, except for the light from the street coming through the gap in the curtains. The months after graduation were hard in the way that honest things often are. Tyler left for college in late August, a state school about 4 hours north. A good engineering program. A fresh start on a campus where nobody knew him as anybody's stepson or biological son or anything except Tyler Marsh. Incoming freshman. I helped him pack the car. We didn't talk much during the drive up. But somewhere around the second hour, he turned down the music and said, unprompted, I've been thinking about the list. Yeah, the orthodontist thing. I didn't know that was you. He paused. My mom told me my dad paid for it. I kept my eyes on the road. She might have thought he did. It got complicated for a while. He just handled it. Why didn't you say anything? Because it didn't matter why it got handled. It just needed to get handled. He was quiet for a long time after that. Then that's kind of a really dad thing to do. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. We moved him into the dorm in 2 trips. He had a roommate named Ben who seemed solid, and a room that faced east, which he decided was a good sign because he'd always been a morning person. When we were done, he stood with me by the car in the parking lot while Diane said goodbye to Ben's mom nearby. I'm going to do better, he said. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the building, at the windows, at whatever version of the future he was trying to line up from where he was standing. I know that doesn't fix anything, but I'm going to try. That's all I ever asked for, I said. He looked at me then. I know. That's kind of the problem. You never asked for much. And I took that to mean it didn't matter. It mattered, I said. Yeah. He nodded slowly. I see that now. He put his hand out. I shook it. And then he pulled me into a brief, firm hug that lasted about 3 seconds and felt, in those 3 seconds, like 11 years of trying had landed somewhere real. Marcus called me in October. I almost didn't answer. We'd spoken maybe 4 times in 11 years. Always brief. Always about logistics. But I picked up, I heard about what happened. He said, on graduation day. A pause. I heard what he said to you. Okay. I said, I want you to know that wasn't something I put in his head. I don't know where he got that idea. But it wasn't from me. I believe you, I said. I did. Actually, another pause. You've done a lot for him, Marcus said. More than I probably gave you credit for. I wasn't doing it for credit. I know. A long beat. But I should have said it anyway. It wasn't an apology exactly. It wasn't a reckoning or a turning point or the kind of conversation that ties things up. But it was something men like Marcus complicated, trying, intermittently present, don't often offer even that much. Take care of yourself. I said, yeah. He said, you too. Tyler comes home for breaks now. He sits at the kitchen table and eats cereal and tells us things about his life that he wouldn't have told us a year ago. He's doing well academically. He has a girlfriend named Priya who he's visibly nervous about but won't admit to being nervous about, which is the most 18-year-old thing imaginable. He texts sometimes, not often. But sometimes, nothing heavy. A meme. A question about car insurance. Once a photo of a rocket launch he'd gone to see with his engineering club. I wrote back nice fins. He replied with a laughing emoji and then, after a pause, remember that kit we built in the garage? I do. I wrote back. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. We should do another one sometime. I looked at that text for a while before I answered. Yeah. I wrote, we should. People ask me sometimes what I would have done differently. It's a natural question. I usually tell them that I wouldn't have left the envelope, not because it wasn't true, but because I'd want to have had the conversation instead, face to face, without the buffer of paper between us. But the truth, if I'm being fully honest, is that I don't know whether I'd have found the words that night without first having written them down. The letter made the conversation possible. Without the letter, we might have slept through to the next day and let the silence settle back in the way it always had, thick and comfortable and completely unsustainable. The other truth is this. I was never trying to win. I wasn't keeping score. Even when it felt like everyone else was. I stayed through the hard years not because I expected a return on the investment, but because I'd made a decision. 11 years ago, standing in a driveway with a scared, guarded, beautiful 7-year-old boy who didn't want to look me in the eye, that I was going to show up. Consistently. Without conditions. I didn't always do it perfectly. I lost my temper. I made assumptions. I stayed quiet when I should have pushed back, and pushed back when I should have let things go. I was learning. Same as everybody. But I showed up, and in the end, that was the thing that mattered. Not the list. Not the letter. Not even the conversation at 12:40 in the dark. The envelope on the table was just the moment when 11 years of showing up finally said, out loud, that it had been real all along. Tyler knows that now. So does Diane. So do I.